I was born in Toronto in 1930.
Hmm.
That's a while back. Well, we had Sisters of St. Joseph in elementary school, but I met the sisters in high school, our sisters. And they gave a good example of teaching skills. And so when the time came and the principal said, do you think you might want to teach or become a nurse or to become a stenographer? Because in those days, that's pretty well what you had. You had the three choices. That was about it. So I thought, well, I'd like to teach.
Okay.
So then I went to the Mother House for 2 years. And I loved it there. Loved it in Montreal. So actually, that's about the only time I lived elsewhere. But after I taught here in Kingston at the elementary school, but lived at the boarding school, which was a big old, beautiful old house that I loved because it was a great big auditorium on the top
nice.
floor. They had a lovely piano, and so you'd have the children or the high school girls would have a choir up there. It was a lovely house to explore. And the sisters were all about my own age, whereas when I was in Toronto, we were more a variety and it was a smaller house. So when I came to Kingston, it was a huge house. And we got along so well together. Anyway, I was out at the little local school nearby. I guess I was there for about 4 years or so. Then I was sent to Westport. I was there for 4 years and it was country. And so our school was from grade 1 to grade 13 because we still had grade 13 in those days. Taught a little bit of this and a little bit of that and so on. And I had never taught high school before, but there you sometimes taught one class and you had another class having a spare, you know, how it goes. But I loved my 4 years out there. But in the country, the roads were beautiful to walk upon. And since we were in the habit, we had no car, that became our recreation. We walked the roads. And I think everybody in Westport knew the sisters when they come along. We were 3 for quite a while, and we were 4 that used to walk because the other sisters were older. If you were home, you had to fall in and have a game of bridge. And if you didn't want to stay on a Saturday and you didn't want to have to sit down and play bridge, you'd have to go out and walk. So that was always enjoyable. It was called the Cathedral School. And 7, 8, 9, and 10, that's what it was. I think they thought to get the older children out of elementary school, they do better with the older ones. But I was just there a year, and since having been out in Westport, I taught myself to type, and I also taught a few lessons in typing. Then when I went there, I taught typing and business for just 1 year, because we were planning to have the girls' convent school where I lived, and the boys were planning to come together. We were the first girls to go over to the new school. I almost said brand new. It wasn't brand new. It was old and dowdy. And you know, a boys' school is not always what you'd have at Notre-Dame. But that was a very big experience to bring the girls the first time to the boys' school. And it was the Jesuits' house, actually. They lived there. More passing through. But there were a few Jesuits that taught in the school at the same time. We were 7 sisters, 7 Jesuits, and 7 lay people. And Father Joe, who is the one who comes here for Mass, hadn't yet become ordained at that time, and he taught at Regis at the same time I did. we did get a better new school was being built because of the generosity of the people that provided for the school. So I taught there for 20 years. In the meantime, during those 20 years, there was a period where I thought I was so tired I couldn't finish. I couldn't keep going. So I went to the provincial and I said, I just can't go start another year. So she said, you're not tired, you're bored. So she sent me off to Notre-Dame, Indiana, in the States, because she had been there for part of a sabbatical, but she didn't take the whole sabbatical. She said, I've registered there, I haven't finished the course. You go there and you take my turn there. And what it was called religious leaders. And there were about 12, well, you know, Notre Dame University is Catholic University. So there were about 12 men in the program and 12 women. So it was a very nice get together. As soon as I got there, I wasn't bored. I wasn't tired at all. I had life in me. So I enjoyed those days. But since you were there at the university, you could participate in any of the classes. Well, I hadn't quite finished my English degree, so I thought maybe I'd do that. I sat in courses and felt very comfortable, but I fell in love with the liturgical studies program. When I came home, of course, I was going back to school, which I did. Within that framework, when I went back to Regi to teach, the canonization of Marguerite Busher took place. And I had the lovely opportunity to be chosen to be there at the canonization and to do the reading in St. Peter's. They said I was the first woman. I don't know about that, but anyway, that's the way it was publicized afterwards in the local paper. So I finished out until it was time to retire. So I was there for 20 years. Bishop Spence, he said, well, what would you like? Would you like to work in a parish? Because knowing I had my liturgy degree now, or would you like to work for the diocese? So I said, I think I'd rather work for the diocese. So he had me set up for the first time a liturgy office. So I had a lovely office with a lot of the other personnel that were there at the diocesan center, and I was there for 20 years. During that time, it was going out to parishes, setting up workshops in liturgy and worship, sending out letters how to help them with the choir. And I have been involved in music all my life, and I didn't mention anything about that, but every place I was, most of the time I had a period or two of music. When I was, most of my career in the elementary school, I had grade 1. And in Ontario, the grade 1s would go home at 11:30 for lunch. What are you going to do for half an hour? Well, that's when I was sent to the other classes to teach a half an hour of music, of singing, really. I don't sound, I'm sure, like a singer, but I was a singer all my life. When I retired after 20 years, that's when the bishop set up, this was at the celebration of the diocesan feast day. I was given at the end of Mass a scholarship in my name that would be, I don't know for how many years. Anyway, so that's, and the sister said, why didn't you turn it the other way so they could at least see that it was a gift of a scholarship? But you know, you're so nervous when you go up to the front of the church and so on. We were a little team in our house in ministry, and one of the sisters who had been bursar left. So I said, well, I can do the bursar's work. So I moved from one office into another office. I did the finances then until 2012. So they were pretty well in my story, except there I didn't have much of a ministry except being who I was.